says Bruno Mars addresses accusations of cultural appropriation. So they had him and Anderson .Paak, and they were talking about, how they got together and Bootsy Collins giving them the name and all that type of stuff. And Charlamagne brought up a point. He says people love to. This is Charlamagne on the Breakfast Club, by the way. We all know, but this is how Bruno responded to a comment about the cultural appropriation. It says people love to accuse you of being a cultural thief, which I find interesting because you are a person of color. This is Charlamagne. And then Amar's response was, you can't find an interview where I'm not talking about the entertainers that have come before me. The only reason why I'm here is because of James Brown. It's because of Prince. It's because of Michael. That's the only reason why I'm here, Mars explained. He says, I'm growing up as a kid watching Bobby Brown saying, okay, if that's what it takes to make it, then I've got to learn how to do the Running Man. I've got to learn how to do the moonwalk. That's it. And this music comes from love. And if you can't hear that, then I don't know what to tell you. That was his response. So we've talked about the concept of culture vultures and talked about all this stuff before and talked about Vlad TV and all this other stuff. What do y'all think about that? Do you think people look at do you think there's a mass, like the majority of people that look at Bruno like that? Because he passes the test for me because he always shows love to those that came before him. I know he's a person of color, whatever. I don't want to speak on his descent and say the wrong thing or where he's actually from. I'd have to look that up because I don't want to be ignorant on that. I say that to say he's always shown love to James Brown and all these dudes that came before him, Mike. I never got any culture vulture vibes from him. What do y'all think about that in terms of people that may have that to say about him? Jay Diff, I'll come to you first. I thought he handled the question well.
I have to say he handled it well as well. But I don't think he's appropriating anything, to be honest with you. The reason being is anytime somebody that does something that was birthed from a different culture, as long as it's done tastefully and it's done with respect, and like he said, he's paid homage to those that came before him and constantly does, then that's not vulture behavior. That's not cultural appropriation. At the end of the day, a lot of things get intertwined with us being from the same country now, that being America. Mm-hmm. If you grew up the same way that I grew up, some of those cultural things are going to intertwine and become part of your culture as well. That's kind of like if you grew up with somebody from a different culture, different color, whatever, and y'all were best friends, and y'all learned different pieces of each other's culture from each other. So in turn, some of that actually spilled over into you. Is, you know what I'm saying, is part of your upbringing as well. So you're culturally versed, so to speak. It's not like you're doing this smack in the face, like I'm rubbing it in your face, and I'm gonna just use it when I can, and then I'm gonna turn it off when I want to, something like that. If you actually came up in it, you're part of it. It doesn't really matter what color you are as far as that's concerned. I'm saying it's not using it in a harmful manner. It's not vulture qualities are when somebody's see something that's popular and they decide to capitalize on it, make a financial benefit to themselves or see just beneficial to themselves, and then jump out of it and jump ship. I don't see Bruno Mars doing that, and I never did see him doing that.
Post Malone, we see you. More, go ahead and jump in, man. What you think about this?
Well, no, I've never had that issue with Bruno Mars. I think a lot of the times the issue comes from the acknowledgement, and that has nothing to do with Bruno Mars. Like the fact that he won a bunch of Grammys and a bunch of awards and sold a bunch of records doing what Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have done, and what, Teddy Riley has done And, Teddy Riley didn't get the Grammys. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, while they do have Grammys, they don't, they didn't, I don't feel like they were properly acknowledged for the records that they did with New Edition, for Janet Jackson, for Human League, for Alexander O'Neal, for Sherelle, their cultural impact and what is represented within their trophy case, is I feel like there is a deficit there, and so I think that's where a lot of people find, it's not Bruno's fault, but they see him get to have, I can't remember. I remember the 24 karat, record won a whole bunch of Grammys.
The record was dope.
And it's influenced by all of these things that weren't acknowledged when they were originated. So I understand where people sometimes feel a certain way about, someone like Bruno, because they, a lot of times people say, well, people will accept Black culture as long as it's not from somebody who is Black, but that's not Bruno's fault, because he wants to pay homage and he is doing what he's been influenced by, because it really is. It's like, look, I don't want the influence of Bobby Brown and from Teddy Riley and from Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis to just die. I'm glad someone like Bruno Mars said, you know what, we're going to pick up the torch and we're going to get this on the radio and we're going to do this in the arenas just like it's supposed to be done. Unfortunately, I don't know if maybe it would be accepted the same way if it was somebody who was, a foundationally Black American. That's not for me to say, but I think part of it comes from the fact that, like I said, when Bruno was acknowledged, people felt like, well, wait a minute, what about this over here where it actually came from? So I understand where people have an issue with that, but that's not Bruno's doing. I think Bruno is carrying on tradition where a lot of, unfortunately, we're like, once again, this is me coming from radio and this is me seeing the trends to where when you listen to what is considered to be mainstream urban radio, and I hate titles like that, but, we're just going to go with it for the sake of argument. Everything is so dipped in hip hop. It has to have this sound and it has to go with this. And if it sounds like this, that means it's too old. And Bruno said, I'm going to take those old sounds that you guys have cast aside and go ahead and make my records with them. And then he takes it and runs with it. And then he gets the quote unquote mainstream to acknowledge it. That's not Bruno's fault. He's just doing what he wants to do and what he grew up listening to. So
it's not Bruno's fault.
The issue is not Bruno. The issue is with the quote unquote gatekeepers who say like, nah, we can't really mess with that right now. Give us something where we have Lil Wayne, or give us something where we can get Future on it, because that's mainstream Black music right now. And all those old sounds, everything that sounds like Morris Day or sounds like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis or sounds like Teddy Riley, yeah, that's cool. You'll put that on Urban AC. But then here comes Bruno Mars to pick those sounds up and say, I want to make this in and put it in, and this is what I'm going to do. And then when he takes those sounds that nobody else wanted and he takes it to the next level and crosses it over, now people are mad. So
that's a good point, because nobody else is doing it.
You can't have that. Yeah, like
nobody else is doing what Bruno's doing either, really.
But he's doing it at an extremely high level, and it's carrying on a tradition of all the people that came before him. To his point,
just like what I said with the new, Bruno, the new song with him and Anderson .Paak. It reminds me of records that I've already heard, but that's not a diss. In fact, that's a compliment I'm paying to that particular record.
Hey, Nate Jeezy had a good point. He said that's just ultra woke Twitter. Like, that sounds like ultra woke Twitter, because there's nothing wrong with what this young man is doing. He's extremely talented. And again, he pays homage to all the people that came before him. And that's a number one rule for me when this topic even comes up.
Here's the thing where I kind of disagree with a little bit. is that you guys said a couple times I saw that it's not Bruno's fault if he was participating in cultural appropriation because he's just doing what he loves. At the same time, we could also see somebody like, I don't want to throw his name out there, but we could see somebody like Post Malone who hops back and forth in between stuff because it seems what it's working, but maybe that's just what he loves to do as well. Maybe he loves both genres, but he's also profiting off of a specific one. Make it make sense.
The difference between Post Malone. The difference between Post Malone.
But I'm one of those. I don't have.
I got it. The difference
I don't have a problem with Post Malone.
I 100% have a problem with Post Malone. The difference between
I have a problem with
Post
some of the
Malone.
things he said. I don't have a problem with his actual music.
The things that the things that Post Malone said is why he's not Bruno Mars. He starts talking about, well, if you want to like hip hop or this type of hip hop, go do this or go do that. Like Bruno Mars has never said anything like that. Like Post Malone, I don't hear him paying homage to hip hop. I don't hear him paying homage to anybody in the grand scheme of things. Why he continues to be successful. I hear him hopping from genre to genre. That's the difference for me.
Stuff is his
Mars
background.
Always.
Is shady because he came in trying to do a different form of music and then decided to hop into the hip hop lane in order to try to get popular. But
exactly
the thing about cultural appropriation and what Bruno Mars is doing, if we're going to take it there, you have to. This is what I don't understand. If we're going to get on somebody, why not get on the people that actually are doing it, like a Post Malone? To be honest with you, Post Malone doesn't make bad music. I ain't gonna front on you and say that. He doesn't make bad music.
No, I agree.
But the problem is when people decide to be woke all of a sudden, they ostracize the people that they shouldn't be ostracizing. But they hand out passes left and right to people that they shouldn't be handing out passes left and right to. So just like how it was so cute for Miley Cyrus to be twerking and shit all over the stage, as long as she had thick black girls doing it with her. And then when she decided to trade it in and go back to her country roots, and that's okay, then she can jump back over into the same lane again. That's cultural appropriation.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's what it is.
So the reason why I said that was so that you guys would articulate this a little bit better, because it just of what specifically cultural appropriation actually is, as opposed to what Bruno is doing, because there is a significant difference there. And when Miley jumps back and forth and says it profits off of hip hop, and then says, "Oh well, I don't like hip hop anymore because it's degenerate towards women and stuff like this," and then she comes back to it again later when she wants to make more money. That is a position of appropriation, right? So there's a significant difference. There's a significant difference between profiting off of something that is not where you're from, as opposed to just doing who you are, and appreciating and not trying to kick other people that are actually a part of the culture out of the way while you profit off of it.
I see what you did there. Yeah, that's
so just doing whatever's popular at the time. What Bruno is, see, the difference also with Bruno is he's not only just doing it that's popular right now. Bruno has carved his own lane. You literally listen to each one of his albums.
Yeah.
He don't sound anything like anything else that's out at that time. Now, with his last album, as soon as I heard it, I was like, gives me Bobby Brown vibes. I had never even heard him say that. The album, how it was put together, just had that particular sound to me when I first heard it. Some of the songs, not as a whole, but some of them songs had that vibe to it to me. And for him to do that at a time where that's not necessarily the popular sound, and to put his spin on it,
exactly,
I don't see anything wrong with that. And that's a musician working, in my personal opinion.
We talked about this, Terry, when his album came out. I remember you specifically saying, you talked about it. She was like, man, he got Bobby Brown vibes. I'm hearing. And we talked about Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. We talked about all of that. And it was like, I hadn't, up until that point, I knew of him. But to your point, I hadn't heard the the comments yet about the paying homage and how he always brings stuff up. Now I heard it after the fact, but it was like, yo, I can see where this kid is coming from. Off top, you can see where he was coming from, but it was still his though. It stood out and it was done well. And then as I saw him start to show love to where he's getting his inspiration from, I'm like, I'm good with this dude. He's a beast. And he ain't flip flopping. He didn't drop a country album the next year.
You know what's funny? Exactly. You know what's funny though is he was a kid. He could imitate Elvis. Now, Elvis was the biggest cultural appropriator,
man,
at the time. I mean, he pretty much took songs that was written by black people and sang them himself. And rock and roll was created by black people. Well, a lot of these super woke folks ain't going after all these rock and roll cats saying that they're cultural appropriating, but that's a conversation for another day.
We ain't going to go down that road because that's a long road.
That's just funny that he was imitating Elvis at a very young age in Hawaii, I believe. I think he's Hawaiian. I don't know.
No,
exactly.
I mean, no, because the thing is, he actually did that impression going back to the Arsenio Hall show. He was on the Arsenio Hall show. That's how long. He's been
part of the culture, man. He's part of the culture, 100%. And this ain't one of them backhanded passes that people give out. He actually put in work and did what he was supposed to do, and he's still doing it to this day. So I don't see any problems with Bruno Mars.
Once again, he's working the sounds that unfortunately, as a culture, we're like, okay, that's old. We're putting that away. We got something new. And what he says is like, no, these are the sounds I was influenced by. And then you're mad at him because he wound up being successful with the sounds that we decided were passe. No, we're not doing that no more. No, he's going to go back and study Morris Day and the Time. He's going to go back and study, the Don't Be Cruel album. And then he comes out with his spin on it. And you're mad because he's putting out the sounds and the styles that you said are passe and are too old now. And he wound up winning, Song of the Year with it. And you're mad.
He
literally got one of the best, and he's making
it like this.
I'm the best artists out there right now with Anderson .Paak. So I'm gonna just say that.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure to join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. And we invite you to join our hip hop community on Discord. Access it by going to newoldheads.com/community for talks on hip hop, sports, music, news, and everything else.